Okay, well, so as long as we're here, lower pin kit. There's your numbers. If they're still any good, this should be a 620 set that I got out of Mexico. Now, these rubbers, this is aftermarket. This is made in Japan. I have no idea if this was an OEM supplier or not. No clue whatsoever. I know that for Kingpins, these are ones, see there's the factory number. If you went down to the dealer and bought Kingpins, this is what you would get, okay? You can't do that anymore, but back when you could. So now the rubber washers that are here for they fit in the 320 there, okay? But I'm nearly positive that when I bought these, they were listed as 620, okay? So I just wanted to show something here real quick. Let's, that one's got a lot of grime on it. I'm going to go ahead and take the nuts off the pin and show you how it fits here first, okay? So this is going to go in here. Oh! Alright, I ran the drum sander in and out of there a few more times, and I took the pin and hit the pin with a Scotch-Brite wheel, okay, just to get all the shellac and everything off. And so it still gets stuck going through that way, and it's kind of gets stuck there. So there's got to be a little bit of discrepancy here, a little small, and on the same end of the thing. So for now, we're just going to put it in the end where we can easily run it in and out. Okay, now I took the drill bit and ran the drill bit in and out there a bit, cleaned the grime out and stuff like that, and then I hit this with the Scotch-Brite wheel on both ends because it would stick in the middle. Alright, so there may be a bit of a burr in there, around that hole in there. I have taken little Dremel wire wheels or small cutoff wheels that will fit in there, and you can just very gently just run it in there, and it just kind of scoops like that in the while the disc is spinning in that hole, and that takes all the burrs off and stuff. So I think we're pretty much good to go here. See how the pin goes all the way through? We want the pin to come in from this side because the flat spot back here for the nut is back there. So how this works is you want this centered, you want this flat spot to line up in that hole so that that wedge goes in there and wedges it. So you should be able to see it here. When you go through here, obviously like that, you're not going to get the cotter bolt in there at all, okay? But see how I pushed that around and rotated it? What we're going to do is you're going to put it in there and you're going to want to get it lined up. That's not good. What you want is you want that taper even like that, okay? So that the backside is hanging down low. Because then what happens is when you put this in, it rotates it, goes all the way in. Okay, and like I said before, if it's still in the video, you want this cotter bolt to be able to go all the way through. So we know the only thing stopping that cotter bolt right now is that being wedged. Now look how tight that is, and this wedge is barely in here, okay? I think we've beat that to death. Then put your nut on, torque your nut. Alright, well this may be a little bit more, I don't know, esoteric, is that the word for it? It's more minutia, trivial. It'll help with the understanding how the Kingpins, the dog bone suspension works with the Fulcrum pins. Okay, but is it really important for general knowledge? Eh, not really. So we're just going to use the arms, Dave's arms sitting here. And if you notice in the hole there, see the waves in it? That's actually a thread. It's a very weird thread. See, it's on here as well. Okay, so these technically do thread in here. And they will hold, they'll hold 300 foot-pounds of torque easy. Okay. So one of the things you want to do too is when you're taking these apart, you want to keep track of the one with the grease fitting. Typically goes in the front or the back. I'd have to look at the manual. In the thread that this is going to get posted in, you could just go page 2, middle of page 2. They've got a breakout diagram, parts diagram. That will probably show which one of these goes. Now I haven't cleaned these out, and I may have a dingleburr in there from welding. So I suppose I should check that first before I. This is on its last legs, but it ought to work well enough. Yeah, let's clean them out a bit. Now let's put this thing together real quick, okay? Yep, in order to show it, I'm going to have to do it this way. So we'll take the pin out, we'll take the Fulcrum pin out, which wants to go the other way. Alright, just change hands. Alright, you can already see what kind of jigsaw puzzle you're getting into here. So whether it's on the car or on the bench, whatever, you're going to want to more or less line it up like this. You need a little more light in there. I'm not going to be able to... I already showed you how I'm going to line it up. And I'm a little off center, but that looks good there. Okay, and you'll probably see that rotate. See that rotate? Yep. Okay. Finger tight ought to be good enough for this demonstration. When you take these off the car, off the truck, you want to keep track of which one's front, which one's back, and which way that Fulcrum pin is facing. Because these things will basically take a set, and you're really only going to get them back together one way. And what happens is, if you don't have them right, as you tighten these down the last little bit, the Fulcrum pin gets really tight. It really pulls against the threads, and you cannot move this. You know, it gets extremely stiff. So when your suspension starts to articulate, it's not going to want to. So that's a big reason for wanting to get them back where they're supposed to go. So this is going to need to thread in, and it threads in basically at the same rate. The pitches are the same. So once it gets started, it see, like right there, it's threading on the Fulcrum pin, not in the hole. Okay. So they're both kind of tight. That still feels pretty good there. Okay, I got a little tension here. Now, basically what I wanted to show, and this is the minutia, the trivial part. Okay, we'll start here. All right, these nuts are not moving. Okay, the Fulcrum pin is moving with the dog bone, and it's rotating. It's threaded inside two threaded nuts. So look at the gaps here. Okay, the one on the right is actually just a hair less than this one. All right, but when we rotate it up, look at that, it's switched. So as your suspension is articulating, this dog bone is literally going back and forth on those threads in here, okay? A significant amount? I don't know. We could probably measure it. You know, your suspension's only going to move about 5 inches. So, 10, 15 thou maybe. Not a huge amount. If, like I said, it's just basically for the understanding, comprehending exactly what's going on here. And it needs to be able to rotate freely in here. Okay? So when these two nuts get cranked down tight, this should still be able to move. Okay? If you're redoing the kingpins, you can do them on the car, on the truck, vehicle. It's pretty much a pain in the butt. I'm going to be making these Fulcrum pins, these, I'm sorry, the cotter pins, not the Fulcrum pins. The Fulcrum pins, I haven't found any. I bought these for comparison, okay? Because I have used ones laying around here for 521s. Okay. Wear, build, design, whatever. You can definitely see that it's worn a bit, okay? Because there's the factory machine marks. All right. So then you can see there's some wear there. But it looks like it's still pretty much full meat there. So it's the same. I mean, it's within a half thou of the other one. So I'm sure they're built the same. Looking at the nuts. That one's just a slight hair longer. Style slightly different, who cares? Okay, that goes in there just fine. And that's about the easiest way to put it in, too. You don't want it started too much because you'll get it off-centered. But get that flat spot roughly where you want it. Push it in. There we go. Okay. I'm just about able to put it all the way in. Let's hope this one plays as nice. And this is actually fitting really well considering it didn't come off this truck. You know, usually by the time you get them about halfway down, if you have the combination wrong, this is already bound up. And it's too hard to do it by hand. It's really not that much effort with the crescent. Alright, that one's bottom. The only difference is it's going to, you know, to fully seat it, it's a 250, 300 foot-pound tightening, which I'm obviously not going to do with the crescent wrench. Alright, see how that binds up? Now, that's not as bad. That might loosen up a bit. With grease in here, this would probably move better. If you're putting used parts back together, like I said, it'll actually do even better, okay? If you get them back in the right order and that stuff. So, anywho, other than the seals, that's pretty much putting this thing back together. You know, there might be a slight discrepancy. I could take these out and switch them front to back. They may fit a little better, they may fit a little worse. I'm tired. I think I'm done with this because I'm going to spend another hour or two editing video for this. This zert fitting goes on here, okay? You squeeze the grease in there. The grease goes down through this hole, packs this all up until it starts squeezing out of these two holes. That lubricates the threads, which is necessary because, like I showed you, while it's working in the suspension going up and down, you know, it's doing this. So the threads have to be greased. It also has to put enough grease. Well, I guess it doesn't actually need grease on here because that's fixed and set. So it has to get grease into the threads. So a zerk fitting on the other side would certainly help. It's not mandatory. Just make sure you pump a buttload of grease in there. And when you do pump a bunch of grease in there, this side here is going to start squirting out first, most likely. You know, and you're probably going to want to see a little bit of grease squirting out of this side here, depending on what kind of seal. Oh, excuse me. Depending on what kind of seals you've got. And all right, one other blip here, and I may edit it and put it in closer to where we were talking about the cotter bolts. But when you're taking it out, okay, that, a lot of times in my experience, this has been the biggest headache. Okay, they either come out easy or they're a friggin' nightmare. These ones on the Kingpins up here, the bigger ones, man, I've hammered and hammered and hammered trying to beat some of them out. It all depends on how well they were maintained and whether they got grease and stuff like that. So, unless you know for a fact, before you take this apart, I would make sure you get new Fulcrum bolts, cotter bolts, not Fulcrum bolts. This is the Fulcrum pin going through here. This is the cotter bolt, cotter pin, whatever. Make sure you have new ones on hand, okay? Because these are very soft and they get screwed up really easily. I've got some used ones there, and they're still not quite perfect. You know, you go to thread the nut on, you can tell that it's either bent, the threads are bent just a little bit, or mushroomed a little bit, squished. Take the nut off, put some penetrating oil in there, Aerocroil, PB Blaster. Read a study before, they actually figured it out scientifically that a 50-50 mix of acetone and automatic transmission fluid is the best penetrant. Blows the rest of them out of the water. I haven't ever tried it. I've got both sitting here. Anyway, put that in there, let it soak for a few days or anything like that. If when you go to tap this out, it doesn't just start walking right out, make sure you have new ones on hand or whatever, because you have to have that to put it back together. Otherwise, your whole bottom end here is just going to bounce and rattle and all kinds of crap.